Today you can join me while I put a binding onto this coaster. And so we're starting with a 2.5 inch on the bias strip for binding that we're going to iron in half. And I am going to now sew this around the edge. I am going to start just before my first corner, and then I am going to turn corners. Now you're going to see how I turn the corner. I roll this up so that I have a 45-degree angle underneath my left-hand fingers. Now I've folded it back down. That is how you're going to get those corners. And then we're going to stick your needle back in 1/4 inch from the top, and you're going to start sewing again. And I'll review that again here on the next corner. So when I sew here, I am going to sew until I have 1/4 inch left. I'm going to take my piece out, pick up my needle, fold this so I have a diagonal 45-degree angle that will hit right on the corner, and then fold this piece back down, making it even at the top. Now with my fingers I can feel the 1/4 inch from the top edge is where I will put my needle down, and I will start to sew. And again here I'm stopping at a 1/4 inch, taking the piece out of my machine, folding my 45-degree angle, pulling the top layer back down, feeling for that 1/4 inch, putting my needle there right at that point, and I'm going to sew till the last corner. Now once we reach this last corner, we're leaving as much area as we can. We're going to need as much area as we can so that we can put the last seam into the binding, and we need it to be a mitered seam. So the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to stretch out my piece of binding, and I held up my angle to make sure I have a 45-degree angle on this last cut, and I marked a 1/4 inch from that angle. Now I'm going to lay this on top, and as best I can, I am going to take my pencil and I am going to trace that exact spot where the diagonal seam meets, so that I have a diagonal in the opposite direction that's going to fit exactly with this. Now I'm going to pull the right side out of the way, and on the left side I'm going to now make another mark that is a 1/4 inch from the first line. This is now going to be my 1/4 inch, and I will cut that on that second line so that we have that extra 1/4 inch that we'll sew. Now I'm going to pick up the piece, and I'm going to match these diagonal lines together, diagonal sides together, and I'm going to sew them so that when they come out of my machine and I open them up, and I have a nice flat mitered seam. Now I can finish the rest of the binding. I'm going to cut that little tail. I did sew that last seam sewing machine, and so now what I'm doing is I am opening up the binding so that I can flip those corners over and start to shape them and start to just finger press that binding back. Next I will take this to Wonder Clips iron, and I am going to I will press out fasten these edges in place. And I'm making sure to put a clip right on those corners because it's very important to me that we have those folded down, and it's worth taking some time to making sure that fold looks nice. And it simply takes practice. So now what I'm going to do is with a needle and thread, I'm going to hand sew the back with just a simple binding stitch. So when I do a coaster, I use 2.5 inch binding, but actually it's probably better to use more like 2 inch or a little bit less. Makes it a little bit easier to work around, but it's a great way to practice your corners and if you need practice with your stitching in the back. So just wanted to give you that little heads up because it just takes practice. There we go. There is my coaster.